In fact, there's a story that just ran on what it is that constituted a reason for this massive shutdown of our embassies. And apparently the regime, this Eli Lake and another writer have the story at the Daily Beast, and the only way they could get this is if the regime leaked it. The only way who else knows this? Who else knows what happened? I mean, sure, you've got people, the NSA and CIA, but that's the regime. And basically, what they've had was Ayman al-Zawahiri is now apparently much more active than even bin Laden was. He was bin Laden's number 2. Apparently, these terrorists had a conference call of like 20 of them. 22 terrorists. Conference call around a virtual conference table, like a board of directors of a corporation. And they planned all this murder and mayhem and terrorism. And we overheard the call. And so now, and we've leaked that. So now Zawahiri and his other fellow members of the board of Terrorist Inc. now know not to use that form of communication again because it's been compromised. Why in the world leak this? I'll tell you why leak it. They leak it so as to make Obama look big and competent and tough and make this administration look like nobody's going to get anything past them. These are really tough guys, the Obama administration, and they really take terrorism seriously. So we've shut down 21 embassies for a week, and we now know the explicit reason why, because we leaked it. So Zawahiri, just to repeat, is on a conference call with the other members of the board, essentially. I mean, look at this as a corporation. And they're planning these various assaults and techniques. And whoever's listening to them, man, this is serious stuff. This is bigger or as big as what we heard prior to 9/11. So they announced the closing of the embassies. And then, while Obama's telling us he's got Al-Qaeda on the run, we leak the actual details of that call, which tells these terrorists, Zawahiri and the others, not to use whatever form of communication they were using because it's been compromised. So now they're going to go do something else that we can't follow. Why in the world would you do this? Why would you leak this? Isn't it enough to say that the chatter was serious and it's causing potentially grave consequences? We have to shut the embassies. Now, naturally, people are going to say, why? What happened? What happened? What's going on? Well, we can't tell you. Okay, you want to know why? Here's what happened. We intercepted a phone call, series of phone calls, video calls, whatever it was. Zawahiri and his gang now know not to do it that way again because it's been compromised. So rather than leave it untouched and able to tap into any and every time, perhaps, that Zawahiri gets on the phone with his buddies, we've shut that down. It just doesn't make any sense unless they're a couple steps ahead of us on this, which I would hope, but I don't have a lot of confidence. Brief time out, my friends. Sit tight. El Rushbo back after this. Don't go away. Fastest week in media, Rush Limbaugh, on a Wednesday afternoon in the Eastern Time Zone, Wednesday morning in much of the country as well, Dayton, Ohio. As we go to the phones, hi, Bob. Great to have you on the program today. Hello.
Thank you very much. I love your tea.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Since you brought that up, I got to share with you an email. Right here it is. We got an email from one of our customers, and it says, Rush Catherine, received my tea shipment yesterday. It was yesterday. And the FedEx driver said that they have delivered so many cases of 2If by tea since your special last week that they thought some sort of fraud was happening. It was really fun. And we just wanted you to know because the FedEx driver said that we've been doing nothing but delivering 2If by... Folks, I can't... The volume of tea we went through last week on this special that we ran is just incredible. And the FedEx drivers, some of them thought that a warehouse theft had taken place because there was so much of it. And I thought it was, it's a great story. This is one of our, from Carson City, Nevada. So Bob, I'm glad that you like it too. Thank you.
Well, my driver said that why don't I just order a case or two at a time? I ordered 10 at a time.
Well, that makes sense to me.
Well, my real reason for calling is back during the Kennedy administration, I was in the Army Security Agency associated with NSA. We intercepted a message from Moscow to northern Russia that had all the contents of the 26 ships that left northern Russia for Cuba.
Now, hang on. Slow down just a second. This is fascinating to me. So this would be 1961, 62.
62. September 62.
Now, and you intercepted a message from Moscow to where?
Northern Russia.
Northern Russia. That had the contents of all 26 ships that
they
left
had several ICBMs and several intermediate missiles.
Right. Now, before we get to that, what was the intercept? What kind of communication did you intercept?
Well, they come up on Morse code, go to teletype. And the guy came up on Morse code, went to teletype, but he forgot to put his scrambler on, and he transmitted for a minute and a half in the clear. He stops, shuts down, comes back up, puts his scrambler on, and retransmits the first minute and a half in code. So
but he was using Morse code. It was not voice.
No, he comes up in Morse code and then went to teletype.
But what at the NSA or wherever you were, what kind of equipment did you have to have, and what kind of communication did you have to monitor to get this? Was it a radio communication of some kind?
Yes, radio.
Okay.
You pull it off a radio, and it's all transmitted across the airways, but it was teletype back then, was the main form of the communication. They'd just come up in Morse code, establish their connection, and then they'd turn their scrambler on and transmit. And we used to listen to them all the time. And
Bob,
sometimes it'd take a long time to
Bob, I know this is a long
first minute and a half in the clear. It was real easy.
Bob, I know this a long time ago. Pardon my swearing, folks. I'm frustrated. He can't hear me. I'm trying to ask him questions, and I've got time vanishing. Bob, this is a long time ago, but are you divulging any secrets here?
I only had to keep them for 20 years.
Really? You only had to keep a secret for 20 years?
Yes. But we kept them.
Well, obviously. Okay, so you intercept this message. You had the contents of the 26 ships. And yes. What did you want to add to that?
Well, President Kennedy knew exactly what was on board those ships headed for Cuba. He put the blockade up. He stood up and would not allow anything to get to Cuba, period.
Are you comparing him to Obama? Is that what this is?
Yeah. Kennedy kept his mouth shut, didn't tell anybody what he had, and stood up and did what he needed to do. So
as opposed to Obama leaking everything that we're finding out.
Well, why in the heck would you tell the world that SEAL Team 6 took out Obama? Keep your mouth shut. Don't tell anybody that you did it, and let it go.
Because
Put a target on those guys.
Obama feels the need to brag about this stuff. Obama wants everybody to know that he did it.
Well,
don't you know that Obama's bigger than the country, Bob?
It's like standing there and taking the embassies, the people out of the embassies. Why take the people out? Why not put more people in there and surprise them when they come in that, oh, I thought there was only going to be 3 or 4, and here we got 100.
Yeah, well, I can understand why you'd be mad about this, having worked as you did. Now, what Kennedy did with the information, that's a whole other story. Again, I'm not going to get into now because of the constraints of time. But your point is he didn't tell everybody what we knew, as Obama is. That's the point.